Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review Flyboys, a true story of courage by James Bradley. Now, James Bradley is the author of Flags of Our Fathers, which is the story of the 6 Marines that raised the flag on Iwo-Jima during World War II. One of those men was the author's father. Now, my father asked me to read this book. And in 46 years of life, he's never asked me to read a book. So, I didn't hesitate. I said, sure. Oddly, it was the large print edition, so the letters are all a 1/4 inch high. Now, my father's father, my grandfather, served in the Pacific Theater during World War II. This is his rank insignia that he wore. This is dated 1942. I believe when it was made, because he was a petty officer 2nd class. He was a machinist mate on a troop carrier, and he was walking through the ruins of Nagasaki 6 weeks after the war. So there's like I said, a long tradition of military service in my family. So I feel I have a connection in some ways to the Pacific Theater and the experiences that took place there. Now, this book doesn't deal with Iwo-Jima. It deals with Chichi-jima, which is an island 150 miles away from Iwo-Jima. Obviously, there's a relationship there. The names are very similar for a reason. And it was a listening outpost used by the Japanese as a relay station and as to keep track of the American fleet. And 8 airmen were captured by the Japanese in the last months of the war, and they were illegally executed. And this is their story. Now, it doesn't just cover the lives of these 8 men, but it does from their birth until their execution. It deals with their friends and their families, those that are still alive and those who aren't. It deals with the complexities of international law. It deals with how our military in the U.S. handled our servicemen's ability to refuse orders, and how the Japanese military handled that particular issue. Essentially, if you were a Japanese soldier, you didn't get to refuse orders. It's a fascinating book. It goes into depth from the entire range of Japanese and American military presence in this Pacific Theater from the 19th century all the way up through World War II. So there's a lot of information here. This book is a little thicker than normal, obviously, because it's the large print edition, but it's a meaty book. It's a lot here, but it moves very quickly. He has a compelling style that really drew me in and made me want to just keep right on reading. And unfortunately, I was reading at work, so I couldn't do that. One of the things I found particularly fascinating about this was George H. Bush. That's Bush the senior, the first president. While I knew he was a veteran, I was unaware of the fact that he was served in the Chichi-jima theater, that he was part of that battle, and that he actually had his plane shot out from under him while attacking the island. And he missed being captured by the Japanese by a narrow margin, only being rescued at the last minute, literally, by a U.S. sub. And he spent a month on the sub before he was able to get back to his ship. And if he had been captured by the Japanese, he would have been undoubtedly executed, which would have changed things a whole lot in our world. And not only did he do interviews with the author, James Bradley, but he actually returned to Iwo-Jima and Chichi-jima with the author. He was only the 2nd president to stand on the spot where that flag was raised on Iwo-Jima. And he was welcomed with open arms by the 2,000 residents that are on Chichi-jima today. There are people who were living there before the Japanese took it over and used it as a military base, and there are people who are still there. Some Japanese, some descendants of the original American people who colonized it. Yeah, I believe it was originally a colliery, a stopping spot for ships to come and fill up their holds of coal so they could keep going. Because the Pacific is a very big place and you need spots where you can refuel. He spent time with veterans there, both American and Japanese. And this book, in a very profound way for me, helped me understand the Japanese-American conflict that took place during World War II. I read a quote years ago, and I have no idea where. It said, "You no more win a war than you win a hurricane. You just survive." And that is very true. And this book made it very clear to me what that meant by listening to the words of the men that fought on both sides of that conflict. I found this book fascinating. It's a good read. It's a solid book. I'm definitely going to look up his book, The Flags of Our Fathers, which I haven't read yet. Because if his style is the same, it's going to be a great read. And I'd like to know more of the history that he's brought to this, because his research is very good, and the notes in the back of this are extensive if you want more information. But again, highly recommended if you're interested in U.S. or Japanese history, or military history of World War II, or just military history in general. I recommend this.